So when we talk about integration management, think about integration as what brings all the knowledge areas together and ensures they function seamlessly. And if you think about a project as like an engine, now, when you look at a car engine, it's a very complex system. It's a complex machine made up of many parts, and those parts support each other, just like your project. If you do not do budgeting can affect your schedule because when you run out of money in a project and you have not done some things in your schedule, it slows down your schedule. So a project is a complex integration of different parts, and it's the parts across the 10 knowledge areas: scope, schedule, cost, quality. Everything has to come together seamlessly, and that's the job of integration. Integration ensures that when we are planning, we consider other areas. And that's why when you are planning, you have to plan holistically. I can't plan scope without planning schedule. I can't plan schedule without planning cost. I have to plan them together. Usually we start with scope because scope gives us the direction, and then we now start looking at schedule, cost, quality, and all the other areas come together, and we integrate the plans within themselves, making sure that they are holistic together. That's the goal of integration. So integration is the glue that brings all other knowledge areas together. And if you do your work well in integration, the project runs very smoothly, right? The project will run like clockwork. The project will run like a symphony. The project will run so smoothly, everybody will admire the project. So that's the job of integration. And integration is where the project starts and stops. That's Integration is the only knowledge area with an initiating and a closing process because everything starts and stops in integration. So it's a very important knowledge area. And this is where we create the project charter. So let's go quickly into integration and and afterwards we'll look at some questions and we move on from there. So integration is the sole responsibility of the project manager. Unfortunately, the project manager cannot delegate integration to any other person in their team. This is even why the project manager has been selected to put all the moving parts of the project together. So you can't delegate it to an accountant, you can't delegate it to a quality expert. It is a job of the project manager. Meanwhile, other areas of your project can be delegated. For example, the risk knowledge area where we deal with risk can actually be managed by a risk manager, and the cost knowledge area can be managed by an accountant, and the quality knowledge area can be managed while the project manager focuses on integration. In the absence of all these experts, the job still remains for the project manager to manage all the areas of the project. Projects are integrative and iterative in nature. What does that mean? You have to bring all the parts of the project together so that the project works. And iterative means we can repeat a particular area of the project. If new information comes, we can replan and re-strategize the project. So it's both integrative and iterative. Now, something happened to me once. I was driving my car. All of a sudden, the AC started, you know, um, I was driving my car and I just realized that the air conditioning, after some time, stopped cooling. And I was bothered because 2 weeks ago, I went to fill the gas with the AC guys. And I was like, oh, is the gas leaking? I was still thinking about that. My eyes just went on the dashboard and my eyes just widened like a bulb. The temperature of the car was red hot. If that thing could have broken, it would have broken. It was red hot. I immediately parked the car, allowed the car to cool down, and then poured water. Now, That's exactly, how projects work. So what happened was that the car was the radiator, I think, must have been leaking or something. So the engine was hot. And when the engine is hot, there's no amount of AC use that can cool down the engine. So the AC was not working, not because it did not it had a problem, but it was not working because the engine had a problem. And that's the way project is. One area of your project can affect the other area. For example, if you don't have budget, there's no scope or schedule you can execute. So projects have that integrative nature where one part affects the others, and that's what we're saying. So when it comes to developing the project charter, this is the foundational document where we have a definition, a high level definition of what the project is all about. I often call the project charter a high level plan. When you're starting a project, you have to start from somewhere. The project charter is where we start from. So it is a foundational document which is referenced throughout your project so that you are still in line with the goals and objectives of the project. There are about four things the project charter does. Number one, the project manager gives the project manager the authority. That means the 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 authority that it shows the project manager, you know, project manager is given authority to use certain resources in the organization. So that's where the authority level of project manager comes in, right? It also shows a direct relationship between the project and strategic objectives of the organization. That's the second thing. The project data forms a formal record of the project. That means it's stored, archived, and also demonstrates the organization's commitment to leadership. So there are four things the project charter does. Well, let's look at the content of the project charter, and let's look at the input tools and techniques that form the project charter. So when you look at the project charter, you have the business document, which include the business case and the benefits management plan. The business case provides justification for the project. The benefits management plan provides the it provides how we're going to measure benefits in the project, right? So before the project is completed, the benefits management plan helps us to ensure that benefits are realized and managed during and after the project, right? So then contract agreements, that means a contract can be issued, and that contract can help us capture the details of the project charter. Then government regulatory standards and organization process assets. And when we talk about organization process assets, we're talking about historical information, right? Organization process assets is also there. Now, when we talk about expert judgment, we're talking about someone who has knowledge from past similar projects that will help us in putting together the project charter. We also have data gathering techniques like brainstorming, and this is used to determine the elements that we should include in the project charter. So, for example, if you're in oil and gas, you might want to ensure that you are looking at the high level description, high level deliverables of the project. We also have the focus group. This will help us to identify assumptions and risk, and we can interview stakeholders to learn about the key requirements of the project. Conflict management is used here to ensure that conflicts are resolved among stakeholders, especially if the project impacts several stakeholders in a particular organization You will need conflict management to resolve problems. Facilitation helps to ensure that people have can express their expectations and needs, right, and have an understanding of the project. We can use meeting management techniques to ensure that the meetings being held are organized and straight to the point, and we develop the project charter when you've had several meetings with key stakeholders. The end result is that we have the project charter created and it aligns to the stakeholders' needs, and then we state the key assumptions of the project. So the question is, what is in the project charter? The project charter should state the high-level scope, time and cost goals, authority level of project manager, constraints and assumptions, stakeholder definition and level of influence, organizational information, which means a background information about the organization should be in a project charter, and justification, which is from the business case explaining the need for the project. So your project charter should have all these elements. The project charter gives the project life, and what we mean by life is it gives the project direction. It includes the high-level scope. It includes the high-level scope of project plus any constraints or assumptions with time and cost goals, provides the project manager with the authority needed, includes the business need or reason that the project was undertaken to address, should be issued by a manager external to the project at a level appropriate to the needs of the project. This manager we're referring to is senior management, usually signed by senior management or the sponsor, and the project charter should be a physical document. Should be a physical document. So the project charter should state the project purpose, measurable project objectives, related success criteria, right? Should state high-level requirements, high-level project description, boundaries, and key deliverables, overall project risk, summary milestone schedule, pre-approved financial resources. This is talking about budget, the high-level budget, key stakeholder list, right? So the project charter should contain all of this. The project charter should include the project approval requirement, what constitutes the project being successful, who decides the project is successful, and who signs off on the project. Project exit criteria, what are the conditions to be met in order to close or to cancel the project or phase? Who is the assigned project manager, the responsibility and authority level, the name and authority of the sponsor or other persons authorizing the project charter. At a high level, the project charter should ensure a common understanding by the stakeholders of the key deliverables, milestones, and roles and responsibilities of everyone involved in the project. So now, so these are the things that should be involved in the project charter. Now, I want to explain why the project charter is important. So when you get so sometimes it's possible that a project charter has been developed maybe by the project management office and they hand it over to the project manager, which means the project manager comes later in the project, right? The project manager comes later. It's possible that the project has already started, someone has created the project charter, and then they hand over the project charter to you. Sometimes it is a project manager that develops all this information. Whether you develop the information or not, there's actually a reason why this is the first thing you do. Remember, we have 10 knowledge areas, right? So if you look at the project charter, you can actually see project purpose, measurable project objectives, high-level requirement, and high-level project description All of these are referring to the high level scope of the project. That means from the project charter, we get information that helps start us up with scope. We get high level risk here. We get high level schedule, the milestone schedule, high level schedule, right? The milestones. And then high level budget is also here. That means, with all this and key stakeholders. Now, if you look at the 10 knowledge areas, scope, schedule, cost, stakeholders, risk is covered in the project charter. So it's a foundational document because the project manager is expected to build on these things and develop a fully formed project management plan. So that's why if I'm a project manager, if you give me a project charter, you made my work easier because I'm just going to take these 4 elements and start proper scope planning, right? When I'm starting risk planning, I'll look at the overall project risk from project charter. So that's why it's a foundational document and you reference it throughout your project. Going from knowledge area to the knowledge area, you will always see that the project charter is referenced. So the project charter, being the foundational document, is used to plan every area of your project. Now, this brings us to the second process called develop project management plan. So the project management plan is an integrated project management plan, right? That means we bring together several plans to form what we call the project management plan. That means that if you see a project management plan, you should see several plans brought together. The scope plan, scope management plan, schedule, cost, quality, staffing, communication, all the 10 knowledge areas, including more, are brought together to form this plan. So it is an integrated project management plan, and it involves all the plans that we need to successfully deliver the project. So it's a document that has detailed plans of how you're going to manage the scope, schedule, cost, quality, all the way to the 10 knowledge areas. And of course, in creating this detailed plan, you have to reference the high level plan that you have created before, which is the project charter, and then output from other processes. This actually means output from other planning processes, which means you're going to look at your scope management plan. You develop your scope management plan is an output of a planning process, schedule management plan, cost management plan. So you're going to put everything together and ensure that all the plans align with one another. That's what you're doing here. You're bringing all your plans together and ensure that they align together. And expert judgment can refer to how to ensure that the resources that you have are in line with the processes and that your project has been properly tailored. We can use brainstorming. That will help us to ensure that all the areas that need to be planned have been planned. We can use a checklist. Now, for some industries, you can use a checklist to determine, areas you need to plan for. For example, in the oil and gas, health and safety can be an aspect you need to plan for to be compliant. So you can use a checklist. You can have focus group discussions, right, with stakeholders and interviews with subject matter experts. Now, one skill that is important here is conflict management. And that's because when we are planning, it's possible that stakeholders may have conflict with each other. We have meetings, and facilitation ensures that we can facilitate those meetings to ensure that we have proper plans. The output of this plan is the overall project management plan, which is what we want. So when you look at the project management plan, it's actually a combination of several plans, like we said, and it's not limited to 10 plans because, if you look at this list, you have more than 10. Some knowledge areas have more than one plan, like scope also has requirements management plan as, as a, as a knowledge area and as a plan from the same knowledge area. So you have quite a number of plans. And depending on the complexity of your project, if you have a simple project, you might not create all these plans. But the more complex your project is, the more you may have to do a lot of plans, create a lot of plans for different areas of your project. So developing a project management plan means that you have a integrated plan that shows how you're going to manage all the aspects of the project. So let's talk about the baseline. So when we talk about baseline, what are we talking about? The baseline is the original estimate plus any approved changes. The baseline is the original estimate plus any approved changes, right? So when we say cost baseline, baselines can change with approvals. Your project budget may be $2 million, right? But if there's a scope change, that cost baseline can shift to $3 million with approvals. So baselines are the target estimates for our project. And don't forget, your project management plan also includes 3 baselines: scope baseline, schedule baseline, cost baseline. But what we're trying to say here is that when you have baselines for these 3 areas, it's possible that you shift those baselines once you have approvals on changes requested. Take, for example, you are building a house and the owner says that he wants a 5-bedroom duplex and is changing it from 4 to 5. Of course, that scope change will attract more cost. So that means your cost baseline is going to change. Your scope baseline is going to change if the approvals are made. So baselines change in a project, and your scope baseline, cost baseline, and schedule baseline are also part of what do you call it? They're also part of the project management plan. Now, project management information systems, anytime you see this in project management, we're talking about the software, IT systems and software that are used to manage data in your project. And this is where softwares are being used. So on projects, when you use a scheduling software, when you use a resource management software, when you use a risk management tool, all of them are under project management information systems. Now, the reason is that when you're managing a project, there's a lot of data generated. To make to have meaningful insights about the data you're gathering, you are going to use this project management information systems to ensure that they are that you can make sound decisions when you analyze data using software. That's why we use software. It gives us insights that we might not be able to see on our project easily. And the reason we talked about project management information systems is that when you are executing your project, you're going to be using software to manage your schedule, manage resources, and the reason we're talking about project management information systems is because of the next process, which is called direct and manage project execution. So in direct and manage project execution, This is where we execute the entire project management plan. So all your plans are executed, scope plans, schedule plans, cost, everything is executed in harmony, in executed and managed by the project manager to ensure that you create deliverables in a project. So this is where the project management plan is executed. Project documents such as change log, changes that have been requested, lessons learned from past areas of project, your milestone list, ensuring that your project milestones are being met, project communication, meaning that you are distributing information according to your communication plans. The project schedule is also an input to ensure that you are following the schedule. Requirements are being met and you're tracking them, testing all the requirements. You are also monitoring risk through the risk register, risk report. Approved change requests are being validated, and you are also looking at regulatory requirements and also looking at your organization process assets, your processes, policies, and procedures as you execute your project. Now, expert judgment will come from the project manager and his team in ensuring that we are managing project execution properly. You use your software, gather data, and we have meetings with stakeholders and the project team as we execute the project. So at the end of the day, we have deliverables and we generate data from the project. So deliverables are created here. The tangibles and intangibles are created here. Now, let's talk about work authorization system. The work authorization system is also discussed under project management information systems. Why? It's one thing to schedule your is another thing for things you've scheduled to work out as planned. So that's where the work authorization system comes in. The work authorization system, this is a formal or informal system that's used in project management to ensure that work is done as planned. So if I schedule something on my software, I want to be sure that is actually going to be done. So you can implement a work authorization system. It ensures that the right work is done in the right order at the right time by the right people. There was a time I did some guys in Shell called me to come and train them, and we decided to use one of their offices, right? And for me to get in, they gave me a work permit. Now that's the same thing as a work authorization system. When you scheduled work, you should have a system that controls who does what. And that's what the work authorization does. And if you issue work permits or work authorization, a vendor cannot come and do their work until they have the work permit, which means you can control who does what work, when they do it, and ensure that the right people and right order is being maintained. So it can help control cost of the project. If the work is not done in sequence as planned, it can potentially cause issues that result in rework, which can be anything from checking with the project manager when something is done to a detailed check-in and sequencing system. The work authorization system can also be used to minimize or gold plating. I don't know if you remember gold plating is the practice of doing more than requested for. It is the practice. Okay. Is a practice of doing is a what's gold plating again? Is doing more than what the customer requested for. Now, with a work authorization system, you can check people's work to ensure they have not added additional work to what they were meant to do, which is gold plating. So you can check it, the work authorization system. Okay. Now, let's talk about the next process. And this is talking about managing project knowledge. Now, there are two aspects when it comes to project knowledge. It is the process of combining current and new knowledge in order to meet project goals and contribute to organizational learning. Your project has within it a wealth of information. As you execute your project, there are some things you will discover, insights you've probably never seen. And this is why we use documents like lessons learned. Now, in managed project knowledge, it has two sides. One is leveraging on existing knowledge. So if you go through existing project documents, you can learn from them, especially if your project is similar to one that has been documented. So that's where we talk about leveraging on, leveraging on current knowledge. That means this knowledge already exists in a file or database. Someone has done the project before, or is a lessons learned someone has documented. So on our project, we learn from past projects, but on our project, we can also create knowledge for other people to learn from. Now, if you've ever seen lessons learned, this is actually where it's created. Let me show you. Lessons learned is created here, right? So what happens in a project is that as a project manager, your lessons learned register is like a project journal where you document insights. Things like, if you are not on the project, they told you probably, is insights into your project that are not common, that can help other people, other project managers in the future to, something you've learned that can help improve how other project managers manage similar type of projects, or if they're going to do something after the project is done, just information that they've gained, they've learned, or they've discovered. Now, there are two tools I want to talk about, and these two tools talks about how knowledge is captured. So we have what we call knowledge management tools, and we have what we call information management tools. We have what we call knowledge management tools, and we have what we call information management tools. Now, knowledge management tools are used to capture what we call tacit knowledge. Knowledge management tools are used to capture tacit knowledge, while information management tools are used to capture explicit knowledge, right? So what's the difference between the two? Explicit knowledge is knowledge that is very clear, like facts. Let me give you an example. If I say London is the capital of the United Kingdom, London is the capital of the United Kingdom, that is a fact. London is the capital of the United Kingdom. That is a fact. It's explicit, right? It's explicit. London is the capital. You can't argue with me. Or if I say Abuja, Federal Capital Territory, is the capital of Nigeria, you can't. It's a fact. That's explicit knowledge. Now, when you capture facts, you can store them in files, in databases, because they're clear, they're explicit. But when we talk about tacit knowledge, we're talking about knowledge that is not easily understood. You can't easily document it, right? It's actually knowledge that exists in people's heads, right? Now, let me explain tacit knowledge. So let's say that your cousin wants to learn how to drive. You now buy 5 books or on driving, you give your cousin and say, when you finish reading these books, just let me know. So after about 2 weeks or 3 weeks, he now comes to meet you and says, I've read all the books. They say, then you should be able to drive. And then you give your cousin the key, right? Obviously, just ensure you have comprehensive insurance, because I'm not sure that car will come back the same way. Why? We don't learn driving that way. We learn driving through tacit knowledge, through someone showing you. It's not knowledge that you can read about. It's knowledge that someone has to show you. An instructor has to sit beside you and tell you what to do from their head. You can't really read on how to drive and go and drive. So there are some insights in your project that you can't read anyway. You can't get the data. It's not explicit. It's not clear that you need to talk to people and capture using knowledge management tools. Knowledge management tools can exist through even mere networking, to you using a wiki tool to ensure that people can contribute to a knowledge base. So knowledge management is for tacit knowledge, knowledge that cannot be easily documented, while information management is for explicit knowledge. And this is the two major ways of capturing data or knowledge in your project. The ones that are clear and the ones that are not so clear. So let's look at how to monitor and control project work. Now, in integration, your project is a whole. It does not necessarily consist of different parts. It's made up of a whole, right? So when we talk about integration, right? When we talk about integration, right, we talk about monitor and control project work. And here we're talking about monitoring your entire project. So it's not just one area. We are monitoring the entire project to ensure the project is performing as planned. And because we are in integration, you're going to see that you have different areas of your project being reflected from cost, risk, let me underline them: cost, quality, risk, schedule, right? So we're actually looking at different areas of your project. We're also monitoring assumptions. We're monitoring issues. So, we're monitoring information gathered throughout your project. So monitor and control project is where we monitor the entire project to ensure that it aligns with our performance objectives. And anytime we have information, right, like work performance information, issues, quality reports, we can analyze the data we're getting and look for alternative ways of solving the problem. So if we have a quality problem, we can do alternative analysis. What other way can we resolve the problem? And with each alternative, you can do a cost-benefit analysis, looking for the most beneficial alternative to select from. We can also do end value analysis. This is where we use the CPI, SPI, the mathematics in project management to monitor the state of the project. Are we ahead of schedule, behind schedule, right, under budget, over budget? We can also look at root cause analysis. Root cause analysis can help us to see the underlying cause of problems that are going on in the project. We can also study trends, cost trends, schedule trends, and this can help us predict what is likely going to happen. We can also look at our variances, cost variance, schedule variance. When we talk about cost variance, we are talking about what you actually spend versus what you plan to spend. When we talk about schedule variance, we're talking about what you scheduled versus what is actually going on. All this analysis helps to paint a picture of what is going on. Decision making is needed here to make decisions on how improvements can be made. You can have meetings with stakeholders to determine how some of these issues should be controlled. So at the end of the day, we have what we call work performance reports. And this is where we gather the information, we analyze the information, coming up with alternatives, and come up with the work performance reports, which states how your project is performing. So with the analysis and of the information, we can now issue changes, right, that can help solve problems on the project. This comes in the form of change request, right? So for example, for example, I'm having issues with my budget. I've overspent on my project. Now, a change request can come in the sense that let's try and cut down on resources. Maybe we have some excess resources that's a change request. And if that change request is approved, then I can update my plan to reflect the change in the level of resources, the adjustment to my budget, the adjustments to my schedule, and that is it. So typically, changes, when you request them, must be approved before you update your plans. That means there's a system that manages changes in project management, and this system is called Perform Integrated Change Control, which means anytime I request for a change in a project, I must analyze that change and see if it can be accommodated in the project before my project management plan is updated and my project documents are updated, right? So when you issue a change request, that change request will pass through Perform Integrated Change Control, and that change will be analyzed before it is updated. Now, if the change request passes through Perform Integrated Change Control and is rejected, no updates to your plans. You are not going to change your plan. You are going to continue with the current plan. You are not going to update any documents. So in this process, where we are looking at the overall performance of the project on all sides and coming up with recommended changes based on the analysis and variances we've seen, and come up with recommendations to improve. But like I said, changes requested must pass through a system called a Perform Integrated Change Control. Now, the picture I have here is an engine. The reason I have an engine is because anytime something changes in your engine, it affects other parts. So you cannot manage change trivially in a project. When something changes in a project, just what? Something else is going to follow that change. Just like my car, I noticed that my AC was not working. It wasn't the AC that was working, it was because something changed. The temperature of the car changed. So it affected my AC. So in the project, integrated change control helps you to analyze the change and look at how that change can affect other areas of your project before accepting or rejecting the change. And this is a crucial process because every change request you make in a project must be reviewed before it is approved or rejected. So this is where all the change requests come. In some projects, depending on the site, you can have what we call change control board meetings, CCB meetings. And change control board meetings is where you have some representatives who can help you analyze the impact of those changes on the project and decide whether it can be accepted or rejected. So change request comes here. The change request can be analyzed by experts, and you can use some change control tools. And when you come up with change requests, you should come up with alternative solutions. So let's say that you want to change your power source. One alternative is you can use generator. That's if you're in Nigeria. Another alternative is you can use solar panels. Another alternative is you use gas turbine. But you can see that every time a change comes, you can create several alternatives that solve it. And then we can now look at the most cost benefit alternative and, and look at that alternative as a best response to the change. Another thing is we have to make decisions, voting, autocratic decision making, multi-criteria decision analysis, looking at several factors that can influence that change in the project. So here is the process where we analyze changes in a project holistically. And when we analyze, we can now decide whether that change should go or not. Now, as a project manager, this is made easier if you have a change control board. Your job would do an alternative analysis, right? You come up with several options. So if I have a change request, what I should do as a project manager, analyze the change request. What are they requesting? Why are they requesting it? What options do we have? Those are the alternatives. What's the cost benefit analysis? Which option is most cost beneficial cost-wise? Recommend it. And as a project manager, I also give my own recommendation and submit it to the change control board for approval. It's as simple as that. And if the change request is approved, yes, then our project management plans are updated. Our project documents. Why are we updating our project management plan? Because a change request approved means that there'll be changes to things like budget, to schedule, to based on the approved change request. And that's why you update. But if after all this analysis, a change request is rejected, no. So if it's rejected, no update to plan. We'll continue with the plan, no update to your document. So you can see here that when a change request is approved, you see the change log. Change log shows the status of the change. And, that's why it's here. So let's go to the last process. The last process is where we close the project. Sorry, just want to take some water. So when you close a project, when all the deliverables have been accepted, that's when you change it. When all the deliverables have been accepted, right? So, or when all the deliverables of a phase so is either all the deliverables of your project has been accepted and you're closing the project finally, or you finish a phase and the deliverables for that phase have been accepted, then you want to close the phase. That's when you close a project. It comes after formal acceptance of your deliverables. Now, when closing a project, you'll find out that there are so many documents involved. One of the reasons you have so many documents is because part of closing your project involves archiving your documents, storing them under organization process assets, archiving your documents, right? Another reason why we have a lot of documents is that we're going to analyze your project documents so that we can look at what happened in a project and create comprehensive reports, which will be in your final report. So analyzing project documents can help us know what happened so that you can create a report for your project. Expert judgment. So when we talk about expert judgment, this is where we follow your organization's closing procedures. How do they close out projects? Follow the expert guidelines. Now, we also have regression analysis, trend analysis, variance analysis. Why are we doing analysis at the end of a project? It's the same reason why people do a post-mortem analysis. Yes. Sometimes when people die, we want to know cause of death. When projects are ending, we want to analyze the data to see if we can also learn and use that information to improve other projects. So just like you did post-mortem analysis, your regression analysis could be regression analysis with cost and time, trends, how your budget was rising, falling, variances, right? And then we come up with meetings. And when we talk about meetings, this is, where we talk about the, what do you call it? What's the lessons learned meeting? So there's a final lessons learned. We talked about lessons learned, and the first one we talked about is how you capture knowledge during the project. But when you are ending your project, you also do a final lessons learned meeting and then discuss with your team what worked and what didn't work on the project. So you do a final lessons learned meeting. So in closing your project, right, you perform lessons learned. So how does lessons learned happen, right? So lessons learned can happen a number of ways. You can meet with your team and discuss what worked and didn't work. So just have a discussion. So what could we have done better? Please, lessons learned at the end of your project should not be used for blame game, because some people can use it for that. So let's just wait. So what did you learn about the project? Assuming John did not do what he did, that's direct attack. That's not what we're saying. We want to learn. Even if we make mistakes, we want to learn how we could have improved it, what we could have done differently. Why? Because later on, other projects are going to look at your lessons learned and plan better. That's the whole idea. That you see, planning a project, you can never get it. Well, let me not say you can't get it 100% right, but it's useful if someone has gone ahead of you to give you the information and you plan better with it. So that's what the lessons learned is actually meant to help people learn from your project and plan better next time. So it's not a tool for blame game. And then we can also use a questionnaire. So you can create a questionnaire to collect detailed feedback, and you can also combine the two to allow for greater discovery and quantitative details. So this marks the end of integration, right? So I'll give us questions, but I'm not going to uh, stay for it, but I'll check it out. I'm going to prepare week 6 and week 7 question. It will be on integration management. So please, let's do the one we are getting now. In next 20 minutes, you should be done. I'll check your scores. Then I'll give you the full list of 80 questions. So I'm owing you 80 questions on stakeholder management, or you take 80 questions on procurement. And now on after you do the quiz, I'll be owing 80 questions, which I will work on and hopefully deliver tonight or tomorrow, but I'll work on doing it tonight. So that's the end, but let's go over. So where did we start from? The first process in integration is developing a project data. Develop project data process. Create a high-level brief for your project. That's the first process. Now, from there, develop project management plan. Now, take the project charter and start blowing it up, planning in risk, planning in schedule, blowing up your project and having detailed plans. That's second process. Develop project management plan. Third process, direct and manage project execution. Direct and manage project execution is simply executing direct and manage project execution is talking about executing the plan that you've developed until you start creating deliverables here. Let me just put numbers so that we can. The fourth process is manage project knowledge, and that's where we start capturing knowledge, lessons learned in our project, and also leveraging on existing knowledge from other project staff and other projects and from your organization. Manage project knowledge. The fifth process is monitor and control project work. The sixth one is perform integrated change control. This is where we manage changes holistically, looking at the impact of the change on the entire project, and then deciding whether we can accommodate the change or not. Perform integrated change control. The seventh one is excuse me, post project. And this is where we do analysis, postmortem analysis for a project, create the final report, archive all project documents, and perform the final lessons learned. So this is all we've talked about today. And basically, that's just a high-level summary for integration.